Now, if you live in Florida, you might have heard of Suwannee County, but right here in that area was one of the first large massacres in Florida history, and maybe even America. If you didn't, don't worry, I did some digging. Let's get into it. Now, before we get going into all of this, okay, I got to introduce you to somebody. This is Hernando, okay? Hernando de Soto. And at this time, he was the governor of Cuba. Now, the king of Spain at the time made him the governor over there in Cuba because he liked his little tactics that he would do. But bro was broke, okay? And he said, look, I need some bread. So he came over to Florida, or La Florida, to look for gold because it was said that Florida had a lot of gold at the time. So Hernando, okay, goes to the king and says, look, let me hold a little bread, all right? Because I'm going to go over here to Florida, all right? And I'm going to give me some gold and I'll pay you back when I get back. But the king of Spain was like, all right, look, bro, I'll give you some boats and stuff. I ain't finna give you no money. You on your own. So De Soto was like, all right, cool, bet. I'll take the boats, all right? But the king also told him, look, when you get to Florida, okay, there's going to be some people there, some Native Americans, all right? The Temuca tribe. Leave them alone. If you land on their territory, just go around them and just leave them people alone. Now, Forehead De Soto said, okay, I don't care. When I get there, no one's standing in my way. I'm going to find this gold and I'm going to take over some land while I'm doing it. Now, when he got to Florida, all right, he landed in the Tampa Bay area, right up in the bay, all right? And he settled there for a couple of days, right there, right up on the shoreline, all right? And shortly after they landed, they started running into the natives, just like the king said. Now, after De Soto and his men settled for a couple of days right here on the shore, he said, look, man, we got to get going, okay? So they dipped, and they started going kind of like northeast, all right, in Florida from Tampa. Now, as they're, traveling, they run into some of the natives, all right? But remember what I said. The king said, look, don't bother these people. Go around them. Don't talk to them. Don't do none of that. But De Soto was hard-headed. So he starts a battle with the first tribe he ran into. Now, look, I don't know if this is true, okay? But I read some of this while I was doing my research, all right? All of this happened around 1539, all right? But it was said that De Soto was terrified of the Temuca tribe. But this is why. A lot of the members and the chiefs of the Temuca tribe, they were giants. I mean, not like giants, but on average, they were averaging about 6.5 to 7 feet tall. Most of them. And especially the chiefs. Now, like I said, bro, ain't waste no time, okay? We're going at the natives, all right? But there was two important battles. One of the battles was called Battle of Nepatuca, and the other battle was the Battle of the Ponds. Now, this first battle, all right, Battle of Nepatuca, all right, he wins that battle because he ambushed them, all right? They didn't see it coming. But there's some important information about this battle. Now, first off, he kept the women. Y'all already know why. But he also kept about 200 of the warriors and the chiefs, all right? And kept them hostage for a little bit. But after he kept them hostage for a little bit, he said, look, it's too much to, carry them around. So just take all of them out at one time. And that's exactly what his men do. They execute everybody at one time, making it the first mass, execution. Let's just do that. But it also was supposed to be the first, massacre on U.S. soil at this time. Now, before everybody be like, oh, bro, there was probably other massacres. Yeah, there probably was. But this was the one of this magnitude, okay? Over 200 people. All at one time. There was another battle in the 1500s, all right? Over there in Pensacola, all right? Before St. Augustine. We're not going to get into that. But like 200 people all at one time, it's the first time they ever seen it. Now, after this battle, De Soto was feeling like the man, all right? He's feeling like a conqueror. So what they do is they take the land that Temuca tribe was on, and they make it their land, okay? They clear out all the crops. They do everything. They plant their crops. They let loose some pigs, all right? So they can mate out there in the wild for the next time that they come through. They did all kind of stuff on these people's land. Now, as De Soto is moving northeast, all right, some of the other tribes, they get word about what happened, and they like, nah. We're not going to let that slide. So what they do is they set up a bunch of ambushes, all right, in the route that De Soto was going. And this the thing about it, though. Remember, the first battle that De Soto had with the Temuca tribe, he kept a few of them around. He didn't take everybody out. And the few that he did keep, all right, they were leading the Spaniards right into the ambushes. Every time. Now, when DeSoto finally got to where he was going, all right, he was trying to get to the Live Oak area, all right? So when he finally got there, the natives in that area, they had a plan for DeSoto, and it worked. Now, look, this is something I forgot to mention, all right? Before DeSoto actually went on a, mission, he would send his soldiers out first, all right? Just a few of his men to make sure that everything was copacetic before he got there. But this Live Oak area, when they, bumped into the natives, they were saying to themselves like, hey, look, this ain't going to work, DeSoto. We maybe need to, move on from this area. But DeSoto was like, no, we going to stay here. So that's what he did. He set up shop right in Live Oak. Now, the natives was like, look, man, okay, we don't want y'all here. Just gonna be honest. We don't want y'all here. We don't like your kind. But DeSoto's men was like, look, we gonna do what we want to do with running stuff, and we want this area so we can look for some gold. So they set up shop. They build little huts and stuff, and little living quarters. They also grew some crops at the time. But the natives was like, all right, we got a trick up our sleeve. Now, y'all remember DeSoto came in through Tampa, all right? And after that first battle, he ran out of supplies a little bit. So he sent a bunch of his men back to the boats so they could get the rest of, the supplies, medicine. And I think they left some people there as well, too. Bring them back to the Live Oak area. But in the midst of all of this, the natives, they completely destroyed the Live Oak, campsite. Burnt it down, took all the crops. They couldn't stay there no more. So they had to dip. Now, when, his men heard about this, they went to the natives, was like, look, man, I thought I told y'all we was going to settle here so we could get this gold. And the Native Americans was like, look, I thought I told y'all we don't want y'all here. Leave now. But they did leave. But this is the thing. When they left, they didn't take everything with them. They left diseases. See, now, this is the thing. Okay, about diseases, all right, back then, because you couldn't catch a common cold without getting nervous, all right? But when he left Cuba on this little expedition in the first place, bruh had about 2,000, 2,500 people with him, including, priests, women, doctors, all kind of stuff that came along with them. But when this was over with, it was only about 300 people left, which is very bad. Now, the disease that they carrying is malaria, all right? And matter of fact, DeSoto, he didn't stop in that Live Oak area. He went to Georgia, other states. Matter of fact, he went to Mississippi because that's where he's buried. He ends up catching a fever when they was trying to cross the Mississippi River. And he passes away. And not only did DeSoto and his men get really sick and pass from these diseases, a lot of the members of this tribe, the Timucua tribe, specifically with these diseases, they end up passing away. And I'm going to be real. Once you're doing a lot of the research, okay, behind all of this, you got to add these things together. 1, 2, 3. This is what took out a lot of the Native Americans, okay? The more you know. Peace.